Say again? Say again. This is the Say Again podcast. I'm Amrita Tripathi, and we're actually edging up on 60 episodes very soon, right here. Some of you have joined us on Spotify, some of you have joined us on YouTube, some of you have seen the clips, and we've seen actually audiences joining us from across India, various metros, cities like Bhubaneswar, which I'm very pleased to see, Guwahati, Kolkata, Lucknow, as well as countries that I wouldn't have expected, like Croatia. Shout out to whoever's listening to us in Croatia. Shout out to those of you in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates who are tuning in. We also have listeners in various cities of the US, including Dallas. Hi, Dallas. As well as the UK and countries as far-flung as Australia. I'm very excited to know more about you, where you're listening or watching from, and what you'd like to see in this podcast. Of course, if you'd like to support this endeavor, you'll find any variety of ways of doing so. There'll be some links in the show notes. We might restart the Buy Me a Coffee. We also have books, and we have much more coming up with Say Again Press, and I can't wait to share more with you very soon. For the moment, though, sit back and enjoy episode 57 of the Say Again podcast. Okay, and we are on with the sneaky artist this week on the Say Again podcast. I'm so excited. I know Nishant Jain has a name, but I'm so delighted with his nom de plume. Also, your identity. Of course, you are the sneaky artist on the website, on Instagram. You have a Substack, and you've created this incredible book called Make Sneaky Art. Thank you so much, firstly, for taking the time out first thing in the morning to join us on the podcast.
I am so glad to talk to you and reconnect after Jaipur Lit Fest.
Yes, I think this was one of the most delightful, serendipitous conversations. And this is what I want to talk to you a little bit more about today on the pod. And actually, we joked then that, you easily could do your own TED Talk. I could just press play and you can go, right? So I'm going to put that to the test.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's try that. I'd love to start by asking you a little bit about, your philosophy when it comes to this movement, really. It feels like you're trying to kick off. You were talking to, corporate leaders, you're talking to writers, you're talking to basically everyone saying, take a minute, observe yourself, observe your surroundings, and literally pick up a pen and start drawing, right?
Yeah. So, drawing is an excuse. You don't draw just to draw. You draw because it expresses something. And before that expression, it requires you to engage with something. And that engagement and that expression is the reason to draw. So this is the primary reason I chose to write this book as well. At the back of the book, it says, how would your life change if whenever you had a free moment, you reached for a sketchbook instead of your phone? So I invite readers and people who listen to me to think about how such a small change in life can affect their curiosity, their creativity, their sense of engagement with their environment. And this is a very important topic today because, we are living in the most connected time in human history. You can be in India, I can be all the way in the other corner of the world, and we can talk to each other, we can see each other. And we have so many platforms and so many services that allow us to communicate and engage with each other. But at the same time, we are going through a crisis of loneliness, depression, isolation. People are feeling trapped inside their own existence. And why is that? I feel like the devices and the technologies that connect us, they also are designed to isolate us and put us inside a metaphorical house of mirrors. It's constantly reflecting back to us the things that we are afraid of, the things that trigger us, the things that emotionally charge us, make us angry because they create our engagement. So the devices and the platforms around us are designed to monetize us in various different ways. I didn't start doing this with all of these ideas in mind. It started from a place of need. I was an immigrant in North America, and I was trying to live in a place that I, at first glance, just couldn't make sense of. And I needed desperately to make sense of it because how do you live? How do you make a home in a foreign place? You need to understand how things work. You need to have some sense of acclimation with the people around you. So a sketchbook journey for me began with not the idea that I want to draw and I want to be a better artist, but also with the idea that I want to simply understand the people around me. And I realized I needed to be off my phone, off the terrible news and all the apps, and I needed to just look at these people whose understanding I had relegated, delegated, sacrificed to my phone. My phone will tell me what white American people are like. My phone will tell me who the people I'm surrounded by are, what they like, what they dislike, how much they dislike me. Instead of that, what if I just look at them? And by doing this, by using a sketchbook as an excuse to spend time in an unfamiliar place, as an excuse to look at strange people and have them become less strange the more I look at them, I started to understand that this is the important way for us to engage with our world. This is a way for us to be less lonely when we look at each other, and even from a distance, we try to understand each other. The act of drawing is a way of understanding. And doing that helps us feel less alone. Doing that helps us feel less disconnected. We find similarities that are underneath the surface, similarities of behavior, similarities of outlook. And in that way, we understand that the world is not so isolated, and I am not so alone in this world, and that we are connected by all these threads that are running just under the surface, but they need us to pay attention.
Yeah. And you say it's actually this lovely anecdote, I think, in this book, and you've spoken about as well, like even that act of being in the cafe and seeing a stranger order the same coffee you're having. It's one of those moments that changes, right? That completely changes the tone and tenor of an experience, which, as you said, being an outsider, you feel quite isolated and alone and misunderstood, perhaps. So you don't know anybody. But I'm gonna come back to this and this theme of loneliness. And my readers know this is something I'm obsessed with right now. How social media has connected us. We're hyper connected, but each of us doing our own thing, performing constantly. And what you're inviting us to do is stop performing, just be there and pay attention. But for those of you who aren't familiar with Nishant's work, he actually didn't start out as an artist. You were talking to us earlier also about how you were actually going to be a neuroscientist. You were halfway through a PhD program in neuroscience, and then one day you're like, no. Take us through that decision. It's a big life decision. Take us through how that happened. It is.
So you know how we grow up in India, like, if you are cursed, I say cursed now, if you are cursed with being good at math and science, your future is decided for you. You are going to study science, you're going to become a doctor or engineer. So for good and for bad, this is the path that I was put into. I'm very curious, so I wanted to learn things, and so I enjoyed it a lot. But it's not the thing that I really, really wanted. Ever since I was young, and I realized that, these books that I love to read are actually written by other human people, and that I am also allowed to write. The only thing I wanted to be was a writer. The only thing I wanted to do was tell stories. And since the blogs took off in like early 2000s, I had a blog and I started putting stories and poems and jokes and all kinds of things online. And I loved writing, but I was studying to be an engineer like a lot of people of my generation. And I did a bachelor's in Manipal in India, and the Indian system of education, I'm so critical of it. It makes you a cynic very quickly. Like, it teaches you, why are you being a diligent student? There are so many hacks. There are so many ways around it. Nobody here is trying to be earnest. Everybody is finding that shortcut because this system works in this way. If a system can be shortcut, then why would you be foolish enough to take the long way? So this system makes you cynical about what is actually a very beautiful, earnest thing, the pursuit of education, the pursuit of knowledge. And through some programs, through some projects that I was part of, I learned about some universities in Europe, and my curiosity took me there. I told my parents that I need to get a real education. Like, I need to actually see what education is about, because I've had a glimpse at this university and it seems like they do that thing. So I found myself in the Netherlands doing a master's degree in biomechanics and human movement. So it's a master's degree in mechanical engineering with a focus on biomechanics. And studying in Delft, in the beautiful town of Delft in the Netherlands, that's what I did while writing stories on the side. I did my master's studies, I did my assignments, and then every evening I would come back and I would write stories and I would write scripts, and I started writing for a YouTube show. I started writing for this little television show that was on NDTV. I don't know if you remember. It was like a between shows. It was a 5-minute thing with puppets. It was called Gustakhi Maaf.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah.
So I wrote that for the last 6 months almost. And before it got taken down, a lot of original NDTV content came down in like 2016, 2017. And I was writing that from a distance. I would just send scripts to people and be like, can I write for you? And they'd be like, ha ha, likho. So then I would write for them. And I made short stories, short films with my friends. I just wanted to write whatever I could write while doing this master's program. So I have two parallel tracks of curiosity running, one in my science, one in my creative expression. And I'm trying to do both because I'm an idiot. And then after I graduated, I got this opportunity to do a PhD program, which was biomechanics and human movement with neuroscience and stroke patients. And I thought this is super difficult, so obviously I want it. So I started this PhD program, which brought me to doing experiments in the Northwestern University in Chicago. And all day long, I would do experiments with stroke patients, 10 hours on my feet. And then in the evening, I would go to a stand-up comedy club and listen to people and try to do stand-up myself. I would write jokes and shiver and be so afraid and try to say them on stage. And this whole thing continued until one day I ran into this comic. I saw this comic on stage who I would always see at these stand-up open mic nights. And he was absolutely awful. Like, he never got a laugh. His jokes always fell flat. Nobody, even he would just get polite applause at the end and he would leave. But, I saw him every time I went. Every club I went to, I would see him, and I would see him night after night trying his thing. And one day it just struck me that he's so bad at this, but he's not giving up. He's just gone all in. He's going to try. And this is the thing about America, nobody tells you something is a bad idea. Everybody encourages you, ha, karo, karo. So even do bigger, do bigger. So this is a spirit I think that I needed and I hadn't had access to before. I was in this place and I was surrounded by people who encourage you to chase your dreams, no matter how wild they are. And I thought, why am I not doing the thing that I really desperately wanted to do with my life? And I just knew that I have to do it now. And I took inspiration from this awful stand-up comic. And I told my parents the next day, I told my professors the next day that I'm sorry, I can't continue. I have to leave this. And I quit my PhD program with the idea that now I'm going to become a novelist. I'm going to write the greatest novel of all time. And I started writing. And it's so hard to write a novel. I got stuck and I started again. And I got stuck and I started again. And I did 5 drafts. And it just wouldn't work. And I was absolutely crushed. And that's the time when I thought, words are just not working. And I hate this. I'd been drawing webcomics for 5-6 years before this. I drew something for various news organizations also. And I thought, why don't I just draw for a while? I'm not good at drawing. I was drawing stick figures. I thought, what if I just practice drawing for a while and just get away from words for a bit? So I started walking around with a sketchbook. And that's how the sneaky art journey began, being in an unfamiliar place with a sketchbook, not being good at drawing, wanting to be good, wanting to understand the place, and being the person I am, impatient, very quick to do things in a certain way. So drawing with a pen so I don't erase anything, drawing quickly, be very self-conscious, so trying to not be seen by people doing this silly thing. Hence, sneaky art, that I need to draw because I need it for so and so reasons, but I don't want anybody to find out that I'm doing this silly, dumb thing. So let's be sneaky and let's not let anyone find out that I'm drawing. And that's how this sneaky art journey began. And I just thought this is a little reprieve from writing, but then it just became its own thing.
With tens of thousands of people now across what you're doing. So no longer that hidden and sneaky and behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, I do want to ask you, I'm going to seed the question here and we're going to come back to this because on the podcast, I do talk to a lot of leaders about how they view success and failure, how that's changed over their career trajectories, what it's like to do like a mid-career transition like you've done. And I want to come back to the idea of success because actually, when we were chatting at the Jaipur Lit Fest, that first conversation, in fact, Nishant was telling me a little bit about sneaky art. And he said, he kind of challenged me to be like, he's like, I'll give you a lovely pen and this beautiful notebook and just draw. And I literally was like, I froze. I was like, no, I can't. I'm very bad at it. I write, or I whatever I garbled at you. I gave you some excuse, which I think you get a lot, because you did tell me that this is the thing, we need to decouple. Like when we're kids, we don't worry about being terrible artists, and we all make the exact same drawings, I think, right? So what does that tell you about people being so self-conscious, trying to rid the self of that embarrassment? Because by now you've done workshops, you've of course interacted with thousands and thousands of people across the world, right? So what does that really tell us about human nature, really?
It is human nature, actually, because this is constant all over the world, regardless of ethnicity, nationality, what kind of background and culture you might have. Everyone who sees me draw, they will say, I used to draw when I was a child. And then everybody has the same story, that at some point they stopped, either because somebody told them, or they saw something and they just felt like they're awful, or somebody said, don't do this, or they thought this is childish. And everybody feels bad about it. And everybody has the same reason why they don't draw, which is that I'm not good at it. So decouple, the phrase you used is the right phrase, because we need to not think about doing things only because we would be quote unquote good at them. The idea of success is a problem now because we think things should only be done if they reflect positively on me. Because again, the way we live our lives now, because of the internet, because of social media, everything is so public. We don't have an internal expression which is just for our own satisfaction. I will draw only if my drawing can get X number of likes. I will sing and dance only if it gets so popular, if so and so people think that I'm good at singing or dancing. But to do these things only because of public, outside, external validation is to sacrifice something that is intrinsically human and leave it for others to decide whether we are allowed to do that or not. We need to get back to being children. When we were children, and this is true for children all over the world, we made art, we drew, we sang, we danced, and we didn't care what people thought about it. We didn't care what it looked like. We didn't care how good the result was. When we were children, we were simply taking joy in our physical bodies. To dance is to feel good physically. To sing is to feel good about the sound you can make. To draw is to feel good about making that mark on the page with that color and then that other color and then that other color. We were taking joy in the process of doing things. But to grow up is to learn this terrible habit, which is that we should only do things if the result is quote unquote good enough. And what that means is that over the years, as you get older and older, obviously the things you are very good at become fewer, smaller. Your world therefore becomes smaller, narrower. In the end, you're this old person in whose life only politics is left. That's the only thing you can talk about. That's the only thing you do, because there's nothing else you allow yourself to do.
Yeah.
Because nothing else is what you are any more physically or mentally capable of doing in the way that you thought you should be. When you tie any kind of activity to its success, to its virality, to its popularity, to its validation, then you take away your intrinsic motivation to do them. So to draw is the same reason as to sing in the bathroom, to sing in the shower. You don't do it because you're a trained singer. You don't dance at your wedding because you're a trained dancer and everybody will think, how cool is that guy? You do it because this is a way to be human. This is a way to live. And making art is also an intrinsically human creative expression. And we should not deny ourselves our own humanity just for the idea of validation and like counts and these various numbers that are supposed to define success for us. Like, why would I draw if I can't sell for 1,000 rupees or 5,000 rupees? These are absurd ideas to attach to human expression.
Yeah. No, that's true. And I do want to ask you, what success means, though, in a career that's so unconventional, because you're one of the few who's, been able to pioneer this as a career. But let me rewind for a second. And, you learned these kind of lessons. You were all of a sudden an immigrant, an outsider trying to figure out your environment. The stand-up comic you saw, you learned that, perhaps you don't have to be constrained by bombing, by being falling flat in your face. And obviously he wasn't embarrassed. And I think stand-up comedy must be one of the hardest things to do, actually, in life, as a creative profession. Was there any point where you had this in the back of your head, like this is your passion? And what's coming through also, Nishant, is you put in a lot of the work, right? Like you were doing the writing, sending off, writing scripts, you were drawing, sort of upskilling yourself, learning your craft.
Yeah.
So it's not that this comes easy, but was there anything from the neuroscience space that made it? I mean, when you're talking about biomechanics and human movement, is there anything that comes across?
Oh, absolutely. So firstly, one thing I really believe very honestly is that no knowledge is wasted. Anything you learn is going to seep into other parts of your life. An artistic practice is going to seep into your work, into your daily life as well. And the education that I have, which seems otherwise on the face of it so disconnected from creative pursuit, does play a role in how I approach my world, how I see my world. So I'll give you a mechanical engineering idea that is a big part of my book. It's a big part of my approach to my style. This is the difference between the words accuracy and precision, something that I learned as a mechanical engineer, trying to design very small devices that do very precise things. So if you just think of something like your DVD player or your television with little moving parts in it that have to move by a micrometer or a millimeter, and only that and not more. So when you're designing these small things, the word accuracy means how exactly correct a thing is. So if you're throwing darts at a wall, how often do you hit the bullseye is how accurate you are. What if you never hit the bullseye? So you're not accurate. What if you never hit the bullseye, but you always hit the ring just outside the bullseye? So you're not accurate because you're not hitting the bullseye, but you are precise because you are consistently doing the same thing. You can be not accurate, but precise. Precision is not how correct you are. Precision is how consistent you are. This is what engineering taught me. This is a very important principle to understand the design of devices. Some devices are not accurate, but they are precise. They make the same mistake the same way every time. So you can still plan for it. That mistake it's always off by 5 centimeters, but it's always off by only 5 centimeters. So you can balance it out. So similarly, as an artist, as a writer, you don't have to be the best. You don't have to have there is no such thing as the best art. But what we sometimes think of as style is actually precision. It's not accuracy. A lot of people, when they're trying to draw, they think, this doesn't look exactly like what I'm looking at, so I did a bad job. You're trying to be accurate. That's not it. It doesn't look exactly like what I'm looking at. I always get my perspective off like this. I always get my shapes off like that. My circle always looks a little bit like this instead of like that. This is you being consistent with your shapes and your lines. And a lot of what we appreciate about art, a lot of what we think of as the style of an artist is actually just them being consistent with the mistakes that they make, consistent with the things that they get right. So engineering taught me that mistakes sometimes are not really bad things. You can incorporate them. And this translated into art. If you look at my art, if you look at my drawings, there's a lot of simplification. There's a lot of what people would call mistakes because I don't take the time to get every line exactly right. But I always get it wrong in the same general way, quote unquote wrong, because this is my style. So now people see my art and they don't think of it as, oh, you didn't draw that, you didn't draw this, oh, that's a mistake. They think, no, he didn't draw this, he didn't draw that. That's his style.
Yeah.
This idea of what becomes style and what makes you happy with your expression requires us to understand the difference between accuracy and precision and let go of the former.
I love that. And also the confidence of this is so I have this with writing when someone says, oh, you found your voice, right? Or that's your voice. When I read you, I know it's you. And you have to kind of lean into that. I think even with as a writer, lean into what makes you a little bit different from someone else. Like I can never write an ABC story. It'll be like A, B, Z, X.
Isn't it amazing how we natively understand this about writing? But if I asked you to draw, you would think my job is to look like Van Gogh. My
Yes.
job is to look not like me, but like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
artist I am. But if I told you
yeah,
that your job as a writer is to write exactly like Agatha Christie or some favorite writer, you'd think that's absurd. My
yeah.
job is to write like me.
Exactly,
So we
exactly.
understand this for writing, but when with other forms of art, we sometimes think it's the other way. My job is to not ever look like me. My job
I
is to look
think,
like my favorite painter.
but that's also possibly because I think, I'm just positing this as a hypothesis. We don't have that many examples of people who are not super successful artists, whereas with writers, everyone thinks they can write, right? And everyone can write to some extent as well, or
Yeah.
as fully.
And
In your case,
everyone can draw, actually. But
yes,
like you
but
said, we don't have as many examples
exactly,
and as much expression of that around us because
yeah,
somehow in society we have relegated art as the business of professional artists. People
yes,
who have this supernatural skill, who have the quote unquote talent, who just have this God given gift to do it, and therefore it is their right, and therefore it is not my right. I should
yeah,
not do this. Only
yeah.
they should do this.
Yeah, exactly. So I do want to ask you. So when you talk to different groups of people, and we just established that most of us have the same hang-ups, right? We're kind of like constrained by the same hang-ups. You were doing a very high level. I'm forgetting. Was it Aspen? One of these like super
Yeah. I
fancy.
was at the Aspen Ideas Festival.
Yes. So when you're talking to like CXOs or like top leaders, is there anything that stood out for you in that kind of session?
So I don't want it to sound like they're different from other people, but something that does stand out is a general curiosity to grow in a certain direction. And I think people who have challenged themselves to grow through, learning skills, and who are in the habit of continuously upskilling in different ways, they are generally open to the idea of, can I learn a new thing, or can I get on a learning journey? So I think the difference between people that is interesting to me, and this is regardless of what they are, is people who take joy in being amateurs, who take joy in, I'm going to learn a thing and I'm going to be bad at it, but every day I'll get a little better. If you can enjoy this uphill journey, then I think you can be very happy in life, because every time you find something new and you won't be good at it, you can get excited at the prospect of becoming good at it or becoming better
Yeah.
at it. So
Yeah.
I think this is a very important key difference. And it's something that we should treasure, but it's something that life sort of grinds out of us over time if we
Yeah.
don't pay attention to it.
Which is, which comes, I think, brings us to this point of when we're online constantly, and we're all aware now that we're being manipulated constantly by algorithms, willingly so, and for convenience a lot of the time, but a lot of it is so performative, right? So when you come to this idea of that, many of us are actually naturally curious, many of us would actually enjoy learning new things, and you see this as adults, across the board as well. How important is that moment when you talk to people about just sitting, engaging, and kind of doing this analog, right? Like doing this offline.
Yeah. So, the big difference now compared to, say, 5 years or 6 years ago is that almost everyone, regardless of age, generation, demographic, agrees that this device is bad for me and please get me out of it. Nobody is under the illusion that actually this is healthy. Everybody knows this is a disease. And if you think of it as a disease, if you think of it as an addiction, it makes complete sense. It's impossible to resist, but all the addicts agree, please find me a way out. If I can find a way out, I will be better, but I just can't seem to be able to do it. So I think now is the best time to talk about different ways to embrace our analog lives, to embrace our real world, and to look at the big picture rather than the 7-inch screen. I have found that now people are. So this workshop I did at Aspen Ideas was scheduled for 15 people. We had provisions for. We had 2 tables, and it was on day 3. So I spent day 1 and 2 just telling people that this is my idea. This is what my workshop is about. It's a 5-minute drawing habit, and the idea is what would change if you took out a sketchbook instead of your phone. And on day 3, when I went to my workshop, instead of 15 people, more than 50 people showed up. And people who had never, since they were 10 years old, picked up a pencil to draw something. People who had never visually engaged with their world, because everybody was looking for a way out. And one of the things I tell people, and again, thinking about decoupling success with this idea, is don't do it to become better at drawing. Don't do it to become an artist. Just like don't sing just with the only idea that I'll become a professional singer. Sing because singing is joyful. Draw because this process of drawing is inviting you to engage with your world, and it is a joyful exercise. Even if you fit it in for only 5 minutes per day in a little pad that nobody sees, it's your secret thing that you keep in your pocket. It's so important to have a secret thing now with this very public world that we live in, to have a thing that where you express yourself and nobody else matters. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. And do it for 5 minutes a day, and you will invite yourself for 5 minutes a day to look at where you are, to engage with your curiosity, with your world. What do I see that catches my eye? If I draw it, maybe I can understand why it catches my eye. Is it the lines? Is it the shapes? Is it the colors? Is it the shadows? What is it that animates me visually like this about it? Asking yourself these questions is, again, an excuse to keep looking at your world. And the more you look at your world, you engage, you filter it through your curiosity. What do I care about? And then you blur out everything else. And then it passes through your system and it expresses through your hand and your muscles and your neuromuscular system. How do I want to depict what I see with the pen, pencil, or brush that I have in my hand in the language of this tool? This is a full mind and body exercise. And you are now engaging with your world, with your curiosity and your skill on a page. And you are producing something that is so deeply, innately human that the quality of it is so irrelevant. This process is incredible and beautiful, and nothing else does it on this planet. Only humans do this, and you are being part of it. It's such a rich process that result of this process is absolutely irrelevant. You could tear up that drawing and set it on fire. You could turn the page and never look at it again. It doesn't matter. You spent 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour doing this thing. And that time is what is valuable. That time is what is beautiful. The result is absolutely immaterial. It's like writing in a diary, you know. It is amazing to put your thoughts out. It doesn't matter what it reads like later. It doesn't matter if it's beautiful prose, beautiful writing. It's just wonderful that you spent the time channeling, articulating your thoughts, and you put it into words and sentences. Drawing is also just like writing. You see something that is ephemeral, you see something that doesn't have form, and you put it into lines and shapes and colors. And you have done that job of translation, which is the human job of translation with the human mind and the human body.
I love that. I'm so almost there, almost convinced. And I'm going to ask you for one or two more tips because you have these beautiful ones in the book, including on why you say 5 minutes. But what I also love is this is, you're sitting in Canada right now, right? You're in Canada.
Yes.
You were in Chicago when you started this. You've come to India talking about this. You've been in the US, the Netherlands where you studied. Globally, this would be something that applies to each and every one of us if we were able to take those 5 minutes out and engage. So let me ask you, just switching tracks a little bit. When we talk to leaders, I usually am interested to see what are some of the life lessons you have if you were to give anyone. And I know, so we do have global audiences, which I love, and I just discovered, so I'm very excited about that. But we also have a lot of audiences in India. And I do think some of us might be like, oh, Nishant, but if you were here, you would still have gone on to be a neuroscientist or stayed in engineering.
It would have been so hard. I absolutely agree. So I want to first of all say, like I said, don't do it only if you get to be a professional at it.
Yeah.
The argument is the same. Can you become a famous singer tomorrow? No. In 10 years, maybe not. You should still sing.
Yeah.
You should still dance.
Yeah.
It's the same argument. This is a human expression. So my advice is that very often we think of the ends and the ends being worth it. Don't think of the ends. Think of the journey.
Yeah.
So in the book, I talk about the difference between finite games and infinite games. And the job of the human is to recognize which game you're playing right now. Finite games are games which have rules. They have a scoring system and they end at some point. So you know who won, and somebody won, somebody lost. So a lot of sports are finite games, right? Infinite games are games that don't have a fixed end. They don't have very good rules. They don't even have a good way to keep score. The idea is that you just keep playing it because it's fun to keep playing it. Your life is an infinite game. Art practice, creative expression is also an infinite game. You do it just because it is fun to keep doing it. You don't write in a diary because it's going to be published as a bestseller. You write it just because it is a beautiful thing to keep expressing myself and to keep talking to myself.
Yeah.
The reason to draw is that this is a way to talk to yourself, but it is a very powerful way to talk to yourself because it is outside of words and the politics of language. Language has a lot of beautiful aspects, but language is also very limiting. Language is how we think about the world, but language is not the only way to process our world. We have become a very text heavy society because we have WhatsApp, we have email, we have headlines, we have tweets. Everything is coming to us as texts. All our conversations are in the form of words. This is not, the more you engage in the world of words and numbers, the less you start to see that there is a world beyond it also.
Yeah.
To sit quietly in a place, to look at it and then to translate it, is to spend time engaging with a world outside of any words and language. You can spend an hour looking and putting it down and doing this for an hour with your mind in a very rich conversation, and no words will happen. It is a beautiful thing to experience. So,
Yeah.
one of the reasons I tell people to do this is that you need to allow yourself to see that the world is bigger than these rules that have been set for us. And this
Yeah.
is the cheap device, the cheapest sketchbook you can find, the cheapest pen you can find, and it has the same access to this world. It will give you your curiosity, your interpretation, your unique interpretation of your unique experience of the
Yeah.
world.
And it's so meditative. Unlike, so you said we are very text heavy or very curated images, right? When you look at the Instagram and so on, this is actually
Yeah.
more, much more authentic. Just a couple more
You are being
questions.
a deliberate agent in your world. You're
Yeah.
being a free agent rather than being a passive consumer of what a corporation decided you should look at.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. And then engaging again with your environment, having that, I'm sure it's very like meditative also. But just coming back to that success and failure thing. So, when you decided to switch tracks, that's a very big move, brave move, moving to different countries. Of course, that also is very challenging. How do you look at success and failure today versus maybe say 5-10 years ago? What you might have
Sure,
felt?
that's a great question. Because I was coming out of an engineering background and scientific research, I was very numbers driven. So for the first few years that I was trying to be a writer, I was trying to draw, I thought that my job is to be quote unquote productive. And how do I measure my productivity? I started keeping a very aggressive Google Calendar, diligently noting every hour that I was working. I started noting everything down. I tried all the productivity hacks and tools until I realized this job that I've given myself, there is no real good way to measure my productivity. Is it a good day if I didn't write anything, but I thought about everything? Sometimes that's the most useful day. So I can't measure it in number of words. Is it a good day if I didn't draw anything, but I just walked around and I looked at a lot of things? So that I can't measure the productivity in number of drawings made or number of lines drawn, but there is a lot of things coming into me. When you don't have a direct way of measuring how much progress you made, you can feel a little bit at sea because, we have relegated a lot of thinking to these numbers. These numbers will tell me if I'm a good boy. These numbers will tell me if I had a good day, good week, good month, good year. But sometimes the numbers don't exist. So I had to embrace the idea that there is a notion of productivity, good work, and success that is not going to be reflected in direct numbers, not in dollars, not in hours, not in pages. And that required allowing myself to be in the moment. Again, process. Again, not result. And the more I dwelled on it, the more time I spent with this, I started to understand these notions of success, which are around the idea of just being happy. Can I allow myself to be happy? It is so difficult. Again, we take permission from other people. I am allowed to be happy if other people think my job description is good enough. I am allowed to be happy if other people think I make enough money. These notions, they again separate us from ourselves. So for a long time, I had to learn a notion of self-described success. Have I had a good day? Have I had a good week? Have I had a good month? Described not in terms of things that other people would approve or disapprove of. And that has taken the longest time to do. That is something that I have to constantly reset myself with, because again, the more I have to be on social media for professional reasons, but the more I go, the more I'm assaulted by other people's work, other people's likes and appreciation. And We are forced into this idea of comparison and comparison and comparison. And again, it feels, why am I not getting enough likes? Why am I not getting enough this or that validation? And it resets, and I need to reset to my own joy, my own success. So one thing I've learned is that there are a number of things that I can't measure, a number of things that will pay off in the long run. The loop will close in a way that I can't see right now. So this year, last year, a lot of things have happened that have been absolutely amazing. Like, how was I at Jaipur Lit Fest? I came to Jaipur Lit Fest because in 2019 I went just as a nobody. It used to be free then, so I just walked in, and I would see Sanjoy Roy at the entrance with folded hands welcoming people. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who anybody was. And I just walked in and I started drawing in different events. And later somebody pointed out, like, I saw him on stage at the opening address, and I realized, oh, this is the guy who runs Jaipur Lit Fest. And on day 5, I gathered the courage to show him my sketchbook, that this is what I've done. I've come for all 5 days and this is what I drew. And he remembered me and he invited me to Jaipur Literature Festival in Boulder. I was in Chicago then, so I went to Boulder and I attended that as an official artist. This was also in 2019. And then 6 years later, last year, I emailed him and I said, hey, I have a book coming out. And he invited me as a speaker. So this loop closed after 6 years of in which the first decision was just, let's go to see what JLF is all about. बहुत सुना है इसके बारे में, कभी गया नहीं हूँ. I just want to see what is a lit fest. This was my first lit fest in 2019. And I was there, and then 6 years later, I come back and I get to go on the stage and talk. It's absolutely ridiculous, but it's something that happens when you get yourself in the position of doing things without knowing how they will pay off. So one thing I have learned about success is that a lot of loops will close in ways that are unexpected, at times that are unexpected. And your job is to be the diligent gardener. Just plant the seeds and water them, and you don't get to control when the fruit will come, but it will come if you do the daily job of taking care of the soil and watering it. If you do the process every day, the result and the success will follow. But it needs us to be open and vulnerable and allow ourselves to not know how it will pay off, but I'm still going to do it. And I don't know what it will be, but I'm still going to do it. And who cares what is sneaky art? I used to have 100 followers at one point, right? And nobody cared, nobody knew, but I'm going to do this because it feels right and I like it and I think I want to do it. And now it has all these followers. Now it's a big brand name and people say that sounds brilliant, but it didn't start off as it sounding brilliant. It started off as me very, very scared that someone is going to ask to look at my sketchbook and I don't want to show it because it's full of terrible drawings. So I need to be very sneaky about this, and me being very embarrassed to tell people. I call it sneaky art because I'm so self-conscious. It started with a lot of this unnecessary shame and self-consciousness and anxiety. And then it becomes a thing. And now apparently it's a thing. And now I can tell people that I call myself sneaky artist, and then they think, wow, that is so smart. What a great brand name.
Yeah, it is a great brand name.
Isn't it?
It worked out. I love it.
Look at what it is. So things work out, and success is something that happens, but you have to find a thread and you follow it with curiosity. So I just want to close with this. This is a piece of advice in the book also that I think is so important. I tell people this. In the absence of directions, use curiosity as a compass. Very often in life, the good things, the things nobody else has done, the thing that will be unique to you is something that doesn't come with a book of directions. You don't know the path to find it. All you can do is use curiosity as a compass. Take one step, take another step, look at your curiosity again. It will tell you which direction to go. The direction will change. Find that twisty, curvy path, follow it, and you will get to somewhere. You don't know where, you can't pre-plan it, you can't see it from before, but it's going to be somewhere good as long as you are chasing your curiosity.
I love that. I was going to ask you for this is like tips for life. This is like awesome. This is life tips. So, I definitely, I'm going to put a link to the book, your Substack, your social media handles, so folks can find you. Maybe the five people in the world who don't know who you are. But I'm really glad for one that we got a chance to chat. Thank you again for joining us today. We sometimes do try to wind down with gratitude. Is there anything you want to share you're grateful for?
I am really grateful for people who give you, who validate the things that you are sort of pushing with. So just because we met at Jaipur Lit Fest, I want to reach out and say I am so grateful for someone like Sanjoy Roy and Namita who cared about me even 6 years later after so much has happened, who remembered what I did and were appreciative of it and gave me such an incredible chance to meet so many wonderful people, including you.
Yeah.
And it's these little things that become something, and you never know how. I'm just grateful for the people who are in the business of paying attention to others
Yeah.
and connecting them and offering them opportunities. What a lovely world because of them.
I love that. That's really really beautiful, and I'm sure that we'll tag them. They'll see this, and may a thousand flowers bloom. More literature festivals everywhere. Thanks so much, Nishant.
Yes.
It's been a joy to chat with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amrita. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.